Welcome to Whispers from Within. I'm your host, Katja Aurora, intuitive healer, space holder, and inner wisdom guide, here to share insights from a lifetime of walking between worlds. This is the sacred space where intuition leads, the soul speaks, and ancient wisdom meets everyday life. In each episode, we explore energy, healing, and the human experience, guided by presence, truth, and laughter. Let's listen in and remember who we really are.
I stand in the light of truth and love, whole, sovereign, and free. Only what serves the highest good may enter this space, all else dissolves into light. Every word shared here is carried in clarity, purity, and love. May each listener hear exactly what serves their highest evolution in perfect timing and perfect resonance. This space is sealed, protected, and blessed, and so it is.
Hello again. It is right in the middle of the night. It's one of those nights where, again, I find that I am creative in the early morning hours. It's my time to, to shine. I just feel like when everybody else is asleep, the noise, the energetic noise is just a little bit less, and I can tune into the silence. And that's where my brain gets creative for some reason. And I feel like I have something to share. I have tried several attempts to share my story so that you get a glimpse of my medicine path as well. And the last recording that I did felt a little bit higgledy-piggledy. And I noticed that my medicine path was a little bit uneven. It was overlapping in places and not linear. It's never been linear. It was all different things at different times overlapping with each other. So, what I thought I'd do, I just talk about what I've learned and leave out the linear line in it, and you can just get a glimpse of what Hmm. my journey has entailed, what was in there, but not necessarily in that order as I'm speaking about it. Because there's so much in it, and it's not finished yet. I'm not a finished product. I'm still on my path, still discovering things, and I'm finding it fascinating that in this process of recording these messages for you, these podcasts for you, I've learned a lot about the technical side of recording uh, with with technical items and how to use them. And that's that's been another little learning curve for me. I am now somebody that tries to keep things very simple. I've gone all the way with difficulty and making it as difficult as possible and trying to be as perfect as I can be. And throughout my time on this earth, I am now discovering the joy and the just the nicety of simplicity in my life. So I'm trying to do everything as simple as I can and find the joy in that. And so even with the recordings, I'm trying to do it as simple as possible, but still having a good enough quality for you to listen to me to make it enjoyable on your side too. So with that said, let's dive into my medicine path. And I've started with the journey already in my very first podcast, talking about Ireland and how I got there. So, you know that I've been initiated into Reiki, if you've listened to that. And then I began my shamanic apprenticeship for 3 years in Ireland. And that was quite substantial, really, the foundation of everything else. It reminded me of my shamanic past in different lifetimes, different places, and it brought so much back online that at the time did not feel like very much, but it blossomed. It stirred the wisdom within. That's why I called my podcast like that as well. It stirred my wisdom that I had in me already, but that I didn't know I had. And even the unfolding of that wisdom wasn't in my awareness as it happened. Only looking back on it now, I know that there were petals that unfolded, that were petals that were coming online for me as a result of this apprenticeship and going on that journey with other people and sharing that path with them. And some I'm still walking with to this day. So it feels like from every initiation I've had along the journey, I have still at least one friend from that group of people that I've done this with, has remained with me. And that feels quite interesting as well, that there was at least one of those connections made. So I've learned along the process to relate. I've learned to keep relationships alive, and really enjoying them as well, and fostering them, and seeing the beauty and the differences with these people, and yeah, deepening those relationships, and feeling the joy in that as well. Releasing more and more stuff that was in the way for me to actually relate. Here we go again with that theme of relating. I think, everybody has that story somewhere in their lives. But yeah, for me, that was the deepest one of the deepest ones. Okay, so then after that shamanic journey, I was then going back to England. No, I wasn't. I actually started the sacred clowning. So I was told that I had a clown in me, and that I was needing to do. But I think I told you this a little bit as well, that I needed to explore that clowning. And with that, I had a just one workshop to explore sacred clowning, and it was fascinating to me. And on the spot, I decided to sign up for an apprenticeship with that as well. So that was overlapping my shamanic apprenticeship, which wasn't finished at the time, and also my Reiki initiations weren't finished at that time. Um, but then the journey of the sacred clown was again similar. It was weekends, several weekends within a year, and one longer time in Ibiza, with the same group. So we were just women, happened to be just women. We had this exploration into sacred clowning. And the sacred clowning was wonderful in the sense of reminding me. I had some sort of drama classes in school. That was one of my subjects that I've signed up for at school. I always had theatre. I was even part of an English theatre at school. Uh, all those things. And so it reminded me of the improvisations that we had in school. We improvised and to come up with something on the spot. But it was still never quite on the spot. You had practices to get to something or come up with something that you somewhere learned before, or that was available. So I had a little bit of experience in improvisation from school, and I loved improvisation theater. I often went, and in Berlin we had these little tiny backyard theaters, pop-up theaters that were often improvisation theaters, and I loved those. I loved being watching them. So I had experience with that a little bit, but the clown experience was just a lot more in depth with that. So we learned to completely empty out in order to be in the nothingness, in the 0 point, in the field of the highest potential. So in that nothingness, everything is present. This is the field of the 0 point, where all potentials are inherent. And from that field, when you entered that field, when you entered this point of absolute stillness, inner emptiness, in a void, which is really scary to get to. And initially, you then were listening to the thing that wanted to emerge from that stillness, from the vastness of potential that was in that moment. That's what we learned. Oh my gosh, it was so scary. And we were put on the spot as well. We were made to perform in front of each other, each one of us having our own nerves to contend with as we did. And each time, I mean, every single time we had to do this, the nerves were there again. It didn't matter how many times we did this in front of each other and how much we knew each other in that process, the nerves were still the same because you never knew whether something would show up in that moment when you needed that to show up. So it was fascinating. It was absolutely fascinating. It was really scary, but oh my God, I loved traversing that edge. I always loved traversing the edge. I love to stretch myself. I love to know where I'm ending or how far I can go to then see if I can stretch myself that little bit more, maybe. So I love that exploration on that edge. Oh, yeah, it was so scary. And it confronted me with this fear of failure as well, which is so inherent in the human species. We all have that to some degree as well. So I worked through that in that whole process of becoming a sacred clown. And the sacred clowning is not juggling. It's not entertaining people. It is working with what's present, sometimes amplifying what is there, sometimes supporting, sometimes um, soothing what's there, just being present with what is, and then out of that being present emerges something that is usually some sort of medicine. And it can be really funny in that moment. If you're really present and you're finding that sweet spot, it can be really funny. And I am not a funny person. I don't think I am a funny person. I don't know any jokes. I can't recall any jokes. I always forget the punchline. Um, but I can be in the moment and I can read the energy. And that's what taught me reading energy very astutely. It was really wonderful to explore that. And this presence, this being present, and not fearing that 0 point where you don't have anything, where you're completely empty, where you're facing the void, which is again very scary. That has taught me to really look, to really be present, to not lose myself in any other distraction. So I'm really, really grateful for that learning and that wisdom that came out of that. Again, that just stirred something in me. It taught me so much how uh, important and how precious presence is. Because only in the present moment you can really change something. And we all know this, but are we really ever fully present? And I learned it there. And that silence, sitting in that silence, when you have the kind of the pressure on your shoulders to have to come up with something in that present moment, oh my God, that can be really painful to just sit in that present moment and nothing emerges. And you're just sitting in that void. But even that is something, isn't it? So we've learned to be really honest in that moment. So there was integrity, there was honesty, there was rawness, there was so many things. So it was really beautiful to explore that. And I then used that once I finished that whole year, it finished in Ibiza, a culmination in that 1 week in Ibiza, which was another beautiful journey for me. I lost my luggage when I got there. And I had to be without luggage for two days, I think. It was another initiation. Yeah, all these funny stories. So yeah, with that, I then went into a hospital ward, a children's hospital ward, and was the sacred clown there for, I think, 3 months, something like that. It was never my intention to um, do it all the time, but I wanted to explore how to do this by myself. And it, again, was an edge to me. So I went into a hospital that I was living close to when I was married. That was in England already. And I made connections in the hospital, and they were open enough on the children's ward to let me be the sacred clown. So I went in there once a week, changed into a costume, had a mask. So I painted my face very gently, but it was nonetheless, it was painted. And then I went onto that children's ward. And it was really interesting again, because here I could tune into the energies of that day. And that was key for me to find what was necessary on that day. I had all sorts of props with me. I usually had some balloons, I had some toys with me, some things that made noises, some instruments. And I had a costume on that also was quite flamboyant, so it was quite funny. Well, loud in color, so I couldn't be overlooked on the ward. And so I then would go into the ward. I would feel the energy. I would then take out my props, and there was one day I still remember that it was really quiet. I mean, there were children there, but it was really quiet that day. So I went there and I just made noise. So I was stomping around the ward, making noise, because that felt like it needed to happen. It was the balance to what was there. So, so that's just one example of how I would approach that. And then obviously would be noted by the children. Sometimes the parents needed the medicine more than the children. The children were fine, and the parents were so stressed that they needed that attention from the clown. And the sacred clown doesn't speak a lot, so I wouldn't speak a lot. I would make noises. I would talk with hands and feet, and also with the props that I had. And I would or whisper, or just a little bit in between words, because the words sometimes can get as lost in our mind again. And the sacred clown wants to touch you on a heart level. So that was another thing, a beautiful thing that I learned from that. So yeah, I brought some joy to the children, and the most beautiful feedback I got from that was, and these children were not uh, on the station for long, on the ward for long. The longest that I've had somebody stay there was 2 weeks, so they saw me twice. So it wasn't any cancer patients or life limiting patients at all. It was just if they broken an arm, or if they had a like a surgery of some sort, they were in the hospital and then would be going home again. But it was still so impactful that the ones that stayed for longer, I was the highlight for them in that week. And I was told that by the nurses, and they said how wonderful it was for them to have an option to show that child, just for something to look forward to in the hospital, because there was nothing else that they could, or nothing similar to that, that they could say, they could look forward to, the children. And I would often be like a distraction to what they were going through. I would remind them of their humanness. I would remind them of the joy that they could feel still, even in the midst or in accompaniment of pain or anxiety about what was to happen. And often use the balloons and draw some faces on them, and left these with the children as a friend, so to speak. So that was interesting, and interesting that I needed to go into detail with that now. But yeah, that was one of my things that I did. So I have that sacred clown in me, the sacred clown being also a link to the shaman. So I know that now, again, over many different years of excavation of my own journey, my own soul biography, as I call it, when you look back on your lifetimes, that's your soul biography. So it's all your past lifetimes, maybe future lifetimes as well, put together. That's your soul biography, or what I call that. And I know that I've been in places like Peru, in the Andes. I was a shaman there. I did ayahuasca journeys. I held them, and I was holding space for people in that. I also was in Siberia. I was a shaman there in the woods, and I was also a Mongolian shaman with a an eagle on my shoulder and riding a horse without a saddle on. Very connected to nature, very raw, very strong. That was a male incarnation. But I loved that because it was free. I felt so free on that horse. So that was another one. And I also was a druid in somewhere in Europe. I think it was England or Ireland. So I'm not sure where that was, but I just have glimpses of memories of that. That was a little bit more to do with alchemy, but also with herbal remedies. I dove into that. And I was witch several times as well. That comes in there. But yeah, so and Native American I was as well. So Native American, Indian sort of that I have in my soul biography as well. So I have been shaman at many different places on earth. I cannot remember anything African. I might have been an African citizen, but I wasn't an African shaman in any way. So I don't know voodoo very well, or those practices. And I also don't remember being in New Zealand or Australia. I have no connection to the Aborigines there. And I also can't remember anything in Hawaii. That's not to say that I haven't been there. I just can't remember anything to up until now. So there might still be something that I will discover later on. But yeah, so my shaman background, which is why I'm calling myself a shaman, uh, is extensive, and all the practices that I've done in the different lifetimes, they were obviously um, shaped by the environment and the culture of that place, of each individual's place, but they were very similar in what they were doing. And so the elements always played a role, the connection to the nature spirits played a role. All of that was very, very prevalent. And the shaman was always somebody that was a little bit away from the community. So a shaman is always a little bit like a hermit because they need to have that distance to what's happening in order to be the vessel and the translator of energy. And I do call myself a translator of energy. I am a translator in many different ways, because now I live in England. I also do translations of mm, uh, things I learn in English to my German friends, and the other way around as well. Things I learned in German, translating that into English to my English friends, and I do the same with energy as well. I can put into words what others maybe can't. I can explain some things that others might not be able to, and so I find that I am a translator of energy. Um, in some shape or form, and that is the shaman too. And the shaman also, this is what where I was getting at with the sacred clown. The shaman also was the only person in the community that was allowed to mock or make fun of another person in the community, always with love. It was never in disrespect or in wanting to hurt them. And that is why they knew, the community always knew that was what the shaman would do, had some sort of significance and was a mirror so that they could heal or they could recognize something about themselves that would make them understand and make them grow or have a larger awareness about themselves. So the shaman was allowed to be showing them what they did in a direct way or yeah, in a funny way, overextending and over exaggerating what somebody would do to make them aware that they were doing it and to make them see that that wasn't a good thing to do. So the shaman had a bit of humor in that and could also be very direct in that. And they had they had the permission to do so. But they were also slightly crazy. They were always crazy people, a bit eccentric in their beingness. And I feel I still have that. I still have that too. Um, and don't we all? To some degree, we all a little bit crazy. But yeah, so I always was a little bit hermity in those shaman lifetimes because you need to, as the shaman, you have to have that distance to be able to tune in properly and have the space and capacity to tune in properly. And so people would come to my door if they needed something. I would not necessarily go to the community unless there was a celebration of something. There was getting together, a meeting of some sort, or maybe a feast of something. But then the shaman was allowed to be taking part. But usually the shaman would live a little bit away from the community. And I remember that really strongly and really deeply because that's what I do now. That's how I live my life now. And I think this is another, I think that I've mentioned this before. I live my life as a shaman. That's why I call myself a shaman. I don't just put hat on when I do healings. I am shaman. I converse with nature all the time. I have reverence for everything, every being. Try to be very mindful of how I treat other beings, including insects. Um, I'm not perfect yet. I'm still on that journey, but I know that they're all living beings. So if something is in my field, like I have a lot of flies in my field right now, that's fly medicine. There's something in it. There's something there that it wants to tell me, and I usually go and look for that. And once I've found the message in it, the actual medicine doesn't have to be there anymore. That's the same, by the way. If you have a physical symptom, I think I've said that before as well. If you have a physical symptom of some sort, there is an actual message in that. And if you go looking for that message, if you find that message, if you can ponder over what it might want to tell you, and you find it, the body does no longer have to keep on showing you the symptoms. It doesn't have to because you've understood the message. Yeah. Body's always for you. It's working for you. It's never against you. And if you understand that on a deeper level, you then can be grateful for what it shows you. And some people have signed up to a journey with that, a longer journey, and they might even die from that because they've chosen to. That is a path they might have chosen. And some people can also change that destiny. There's yeah, openings in their life that where they can turn things around and show us how it's done to create that miracle. So going back to the shaman. So the shamanism was one really big aspect in my life, and more and more and more after that apprenticeship for 3 years, I then went to England, and I only wanted to stay a year in England and then move on again. Then I met my husband to be, and I decided to stay, as you would. And I spent 14 long years with my husband, and it was all very interesting as well. It was a really intense time in places, very fruitful, I find. It was um, a time full of learning for me, a time full of relating too. And initially, when I came to England, I completely lost myself again. So you have to see that. How can I say this? So Berlin has well, this was my anchor, right? Berlin was my pace of life that I grew up in. So I knew the pace of life of Berlin quite well. If you know London, it's probably like a third of the pace of Berlin. So it's slower. It's much slower. It's not the same at all. And I was very comfortable in Berlin. I did not feel it was too fast. I just fitted in. Obviously, I was born into that, so it felt right for me. And then I moved to Ireland, and Ireland is really, really slow. Pace of life is really slow, and they also don't really take much care of time, or they don't notice the time as much. So if you're late for a quarter of an hour or something, that doesn't really matter. That suited me so well. I'm not at all punctual German, not at all. I'm probably the most opposite that I can be. I'm always late. I'm always late. And I don't mind that. I don't mind being late. Um, but yeah, that's my relationship to time. So Ireland suited me very well. Um, I also learned the presence aspect with the slowness of the time. So that really allowed me to tune into nature and to really pause and to rest deeply. It was all possible in Ireland. So I really loved that pace of life. And I got on really well with that. So it was probably half of Berlin, even. That's how slow Ireland is, it feels like. And that was Kerry. So again, that might be different in Dublin because that's a bigger city. But in Kerry, that was the pace of life. And then from there, I went to London. And London is really fast. It comes close to New York. It's not quite the same. And I have never been in New York, but I know I can tune into the energy of New York and obviously have seen things from there. Yes, the world is connected with everything. You can just find that out. So New York is really, really fast. It's one of the fastest places on earth. And London is very similar to that. It probably is a little bit slower than New York, but it's still very fast. Very, very fast. And oh my God, when I landed in London, well, I should have known that. Really. I I left Ireland, put everything I owned into my car. It fitted into my car, my very first car, a Toyota Corolla, an old one. Uh, Everything fitted including one of my plants. So my car was full up with my things, and then I just drove over to England. And as I came closer to London, the and I've learned how to drive on the left hand side in Ireland. So I did my driving license in Germany on the right hand side of the road. And then I learned how to drive on the left hand side of the road in Ireland. And it was a saving grace because I found myself very often on the wrong side of the road because in Ireland you don't have any traffic. No, not much traffic in the rural areas. So it was perfect for me to learn it. And 3 years were enough for me to kind of get used to that. And then I went to England in my car, and oh my God, I got lost on the roundabouts. There's such big roundabouts in England that you can get lost on. And I was going round and round and round the roundabouts because I couldn't get out of them. Oh my God. I almost had panic attacks in the English traffic. And I don't get panic attacks normally, but the driving, oh my God, that was quite tough. Coming from Ireland, the slow pace of life, but I was really absorbed in, and then coming into London, and life was so fast. Oh my God. So the traffic was the first indication of that. And I eventually ended, I eventually arrived where I was meant to be arriving. I had a friend of mine who I met in Ireland. She had family in Ireland and she visited her family there, and that's how we met. And she rented a room in a house in Rickmansworth. That is the north of London, outskirts, close to Watford. I think. Yeah, Watford is the word. Yeah, I think that's what it was. And it was a beautiful space, a beautiful big house close to the canal in Rickmansworth. Behind it was surrounded by forest, and you had peace in that little area where the house was. And then you went through the forest, and then there was the hustle and bustle. So it was really kind of nicely secluded there. It was quite a nice place to live. And there was a room coming available in her house when she said, "Do you want to come over?" And that was right at the time when everything in Ireland seemed to come to an end. So it was a natural ending in Ireland. So my apprenticeships finished. Other things came to a close, and it felt like it was the right time to move on. And I felt that. I felt that deeply. So then I packed everything together, and the room became available. That was in October 2007. And I then went and lived with her. And oh my God, I had to find work to be able to pay the rent, and it wasn't enough. It was not enough. It didn't do anything left, right, and center. There were so many taxes to pay that I didn't have to pay in Ireland. And life was really tough. So not having enough money coming in to pay my way was really tough on me. And I didn't even have enough money to go home to visit my parents. I was stuck for a year and I was paddling. I was really paddling for that year. But within that year, I also got to know Lawrence. That's my then husband to be. And that kind of saved me in a way as well. We got on really well, and he distracted me a little bit from this hardship. It felt like a little bit of saving grace in all the hustle and bustle. It was really fast paced. I didn't like what I was doing. I was so much back in the 3D world after my expanded awareness as the shaman in Ireland. I completely fell back on my feet in the 3D here and now. And it was almost like, and now what? What do you do with all that knowledge, all that wisdom that you accumulated in your shaman apprenticeship? What do you do with that? I completely lost it all. I completely went back into 3D. I did not go anywhere close to any spiritual practices apart from speaking about it at home with my friend because she was along the same lines with me. That was also very good because it needed to be kept alive, obviously. But yeah, I didn't have the time. I was so tired after work, which took a lot of energy out of me, that really I could not really connect to that shaman in me for quite some time. But that is again, that was me being forged as the shaman, because eventually the practices I learned as the shaman helped me navigate life again. And me forgetting them all was bringing home to me how vital they were in the end. So I was reminded of them again by making contacts that were spiritual in England. So again, I was going on that journey of, first of all, having to work, eat, sleep, same thing again, and just survive, because that's what it felt like. I didn't have any more capacity than just surviving. And then eventually that opened up into having new friendships, new connections, new input, and remembering what it was to be a shaman and to do shamanic practices. And yeah, for me now, when I look back, that's the mastery. We all can be mindful and balanced, and we can do our practices when we are on holiday, when we are outside of our normal day-to-day life. We can do that. We can do that for a few days, maybe a few weeks at a time. But when we are in the hustle of bustle of daily life, of our minutiae, our routines, that is really where the mastery comes into play. Because if we master our day to day with practices that we have at our disposal, the practices that we've learned, if we can put those into our day to day, that is when it really comes to shine within you. That is when you're really mastering human life. Because when we are a soul, when we are not incarnated, everything is right, everything is good up there. But only as a human being, we get to be thrown into these densities, into the stress levels that we get to experience here. And when we can then be mindful within that stress that happens to us, that is around us, that is encompassing, all encompassing, we then really begin to notice what it means, how the humanness will teach us so much. And only through mindfulness, or the awareness of our functioning within it and our observing ourselves in it, can help us grow so much. So the most growth that we can experience is actually when we face the most stress we have in our lives. In that moment of stress, not in the moment of pause or holiday, because everybody can do that. That's not mastery. That's just, yeah. So the mastery is in that stress, in the day-to-day minutia of things. And so that's what I learned. That was the initiation here. And it took me a long time. It took me about a year and a half to really come back and fall on my feet. I lost my feet completely. I did not feel grounded because I didn't have much time to go into nature. Didn't have the energy, full stop, to go much into nature. Where in Ireland, I was out in nature all the time. So I had to bring that element of nature back in to ground myself. And then I also had to bring in the shamanic practices again, had to find connections that were similar, that would remind me of what I did as the shaman, because that was still fairly new, but still familiar, but I had to put that into my day to day, right? So, and little by little, that's what happened. I also felt like London is very dense, the energies are very dense, whereas Ireland is very um, etheric. The veils are very thin, so you can easily pick things up easier. It was really easy for me to tune into the energies of things in Ireland because I could. It was just there. Whereas in London, with all the interferences, with all the EMFs, the electromagnetic frequencies around you that tamper with our innate abilities to pick up things, oh my God, that was tough. So I didn't hear my own inner guidance system through the noise. And I feel like in England, it started that I was really tapping into my rhythm of being a night owl, because only at night could I tune into my inner guidance. It was the best time to tune into it, because the noise levels of everybody's everybody's energies and the electromagnetic frequencies that were really strong in England, still are really strong in England, that distortion of things, it really took a lot out of me to concentrate enough to be able to hear me and my guidance system, my helpers. Um, but that again was an initiation. If I could do this in London, I could do it anywhere. If I was strong enough to get through the noise of London, I could do it anywhere. And again, I didn't know that at the time. I was just really trying my best to get it done, to do it in that environment. And I managed. I managed. Eventually, I mean, it took me a bit of time. The practice as a shaman slowly began in England. So I had here and there, I had a few people that came to me. Often, I started out with online sessions for friends in Germany, and then it also were a few friends here or in Ireland that I had remote sessions with, that I practiced my skills as a shaman with. And initially they were long sessions, because it took me quite some time to get through the noise to really feel the guidance behind. But I did. Eventually, I did. And so that was interesting. That was that. I was then also initiated into the Reiki teacher. So I had 3 levels of Reiki initiations, and then the last one was the Reiki teacher. So I can initiate people into Reiki, but I'm not doing that. I have not done that with anybody. I could do that, but I feel like I don't want to do that. I feel Reiki is a good tool to have. It definitely opened my channels up wider, and it connected me back quite nicely. But I feel it's an old type of energy that is now, it can still help people, but it's kind of changing. Uh, can't really put that into words either right now. But I do another energy healing. So Reiki energy is like life force energy channeled through your hands, and everybody has it. Even if you're not initiated to have, you have the Reiki energy because it's simply life force flowing through you. And you can even feel it if you put your hands like in a prayer position and then take them apart from each other. You can feel there's a little bit of resistance in between your hands. That is what Reiki is. That's the Reiki. It's prana. It's a life force energy. And in a Reiki practitioner, it is just amplified a little bit more because our channels have been open to receive that more fully. So you feel the warmth or sometimes cold coming through the hands of a Reiki practitioner. And the more levels of Reiki you have been in tune to, the wider your channel is. Um, and I feel like that's an old energy that belongs to the 3D, 4D sort of world, I find, in my view. And I've then also been initiated into Elise-Mila. This is a German person that has channeled this. This is from an angel, Nathaniel, and Elise angels. Elise is connected with the Beethoven. Is it Beethoven? I think it's Beethoven. Um, Symphony für Elise. There's one particular one, and it's all connected. This is all connected, and it's still life force energy, but it's infused with Mila, which is magnetic impulses, magnetic pulses that I am transferring with with my fingers, with 2 fingers particularly, and the Elise-Mila as a new energy form, as a new earth energy, fabulous for pregnancies, fabulous for any real traumatic shock type of scenarios, to go through that. But also if you're struggling with energy, full stop, if you haven't got a lot of energy in you, the Elise-Mila is really great to build that up. It is said that you only need 9 sessions of Elise-Mila and then it's self-sustaining. I think we are very close to that now as the frequencies are rising on the planet, but it's still not fully self sustaining even after 9 sessions, but it comes close to that. So once you had 9 sessions of this, it's actually um, self sustaining within your system. So the body creates that energy within you. You don't need to come for more, which I love. It makes you independent from me, that the last thing I want you to be is to be dependent on my services. I want you to be self empowered when you come to me. And this is my goal with everything I offer. You become self sufficient and self empowered, and that you learn how to use these subtle energies for yourself so that you have tools in your toolbox and can also take that forward and show it to others if you are that way inclined, or just be better in yourself, and that is enough for me too. But yeah, so the Elise-Mila is actually creating new pathways along your meridian system. So it's raising the meridian system up to cope with the new frequencies on Earth. That's why it's called a new Earth energy healing. And it's fabulous. It's a really nice and it's very quick as well. This is another way how you can tell it's a new earth frequency because it's quick. everything that comes from comes in for the new frequencies is very, very quick. And another one I have in my toolbox here is the THEKI energy. THEKI is spelled THEKI. THEKI is nothing to do with Reiki. Mhm. You could call it the key. You could also uh, yeah, it's a German lady that has remembered this. Again, it was a channeling, but she says it's not hers. She remembered using this in ancient Egypt. And I remember using this in ancient Egypt too. So I have been a priestess in ancient Egypt and I used that technique then. So it's again just a remembering in my system. It's so clear to me. It's just a remembering in my system. And it's my favorite technique of all the ones that I have. So Teiki is an energy healing that works with the theta brainwave state. That's the same state that hypnosis is using, and it's similar to that process. So the only difference here is that I help you get into that brainwave. So we all have, we usually um, in everyday life we are in the beta brainwave. It's quite fast. When you do meditations, you get it into alpha. You can also sometimes go into delta. This is like really fast paced epiphany type of energy. And the theta is the only brainwave state. It's also that of REM sleep, like deep sleep. That's the same brainwave. It's where the subconscious can be accessed. It's the only brainwave state where the subconscious can be accessed. In alpha, you slow down and you can calm your system, but it doesn't allow you. So, in meditative state doesn't allow you yet to change your subconscious mind. The theta brainwave state does. And so that's what I induce in you when you have a session with me. And then we change your subconscious programming. We change traumas in you. We can change anything you've got in your system and take it out of you, change it so that, yeah, you still have the memories, but the sting and the hurt of those places, of those things in your system will no longer be there. So it's really powerful, it's really quick, and I love it for that reason. It just amplified everything that I've learned to the nth degree. It's really, really wonderful. It brought I've learned this in 2013. No, no, that's not right. 2023. Sorry, 23. So it's a very recent addition to my portfolio, but it has actually increased my whole bandwidth of what I'm capable of doing so dramatically. It's a real gift, and I really, really cherish it. And I also, yeah, take it forward. So, when people want to know how this is done, I can easily show you. This is not rocket science. It's just a remembering, and it's not mine. It is just a channeling again. And I also love the lady that has channeled it. Her name is Sandra Weber. She has a YouTube channel with a lot of free information. She's a German uh, lady that now lives in South Africa. And so she's now discovering English as well. And she is slowly changing all her teachings so that they're available in English as well, slowly but surely. And you can watch her videos with in English subtitle as well. It's not always translated really well, but at least you get the gist of it. And I would highly recommend it. She's a really beautiful soul, very balanced. And with all of the things that I do, I always look at my teachers, especially now. I look at how they're living their lives because that's testimony to how they approach life, how they are applying their wisdom, how they are integrating what they are teaching into their own lives. And she is a prime example of that. She is very happy in her marriage and her private life. She doesn't share much about it, but what she shares is genuine and in integrity. And I really, really honor that. And that's what I want to be like as well. I want to absolutely be in integrity, in honesty, because I come from the opposite of that. but, but that's another story for another time. So that is very powerful. I also am very, as I mentioned before, very prone to or can deal with that very well. Numbers and numerology is one of the things that I'm really interested in. I have quite a good knowledge about astrology as well, but not in depth, just on the surface level, but enough for me to make sense of certain things. And then I also have studied human design, so you'll hear me talk about that a lot as well, hopefully, in the podcast that will come out because I'm just really passionate about it and how much it can change your perception of yourself. Again, it's a tool for your self care because it gives you permission to be who you are in your design, and that's the power of that. And the other thing I've learned is Feng Shui, the art of how to um, place your furniture in your home, how to make the room in harmony around you. That's the best I can explain it. I think you probably know it anyway. I've started doing that. I've never finished my certificates. I've never finished the course, but I intend to still do that. But I have a passion about it. So again, it's something that I'm just really interested in. I just never finished it because at the time that I left Berlin, that's when I studied that. I was in a course. I was halfway through the course, I think, or 2/3 through the course, and I never finished it because I left Berlin before I could finish it. There's a really great Feng Shui school in Berlin, and they didn't do any online courses at the time. I think that might have changed now, but I haven't looked into it. I didn't have the time yet, but I'm still intending to finish that course because it's fascinating me. Um, yeah, brings it all together. So I've got that as well. I'm just thinking, have I got anything else that I can share with you? Oh, yeah. The other thing that I've picked up along the way is the laughing. So, my own medicine journey entailed me having three burnouts in my life. And I probably will tell my burnout story another time because that again needs a bit more explaining. But one of them was a full blown burnout, and that happened on a Wednesday. And I had a scheduled course in laughter yoga on that same weekend. So I had a burnout on Wednesday, like a mental breakdown on Wednesday, and that course was scheduled in for that Saturday. It was a weekend course. And oh my God, that was my saving grace. So that was no coincidence. That I was absolutely planned in my soul path, and it opened the way for me to heal from this burnout. And that burnout was so severe that I couldn't do any household chores anymore. I couldn't get out of bed in the morning. I was really depressed and really lethargic. I didn't have any energy left, and I still managed to get to that workshop, and it was my saving grace. So that is another big piece of my healing journey, the burnout story, which I still have to share with you, but I do that another time. So I leave it here for now. So this is my medicine path in a nutshell, higgledy-piggledy and not linear, but it gives you a flavor of what is in my toolbox when you come to me. So nowadays, all my sessions have some sort of mixture of these abilities and tools that I've accumulated. And I have forgotten one other thing as well. In 2015, I had a 9 months container, was called Magic School. And I mention that when I go through the burnout story. So we're going to do that another time. That's the second part of my medicine part. I'm going to call it that. Um, and I will go into the magic school with you as well, because that was another really vital piece for me to read myself, to read my own energy, which often is not taught very well. And healers can often tune into everybody else but themselves. And I learned tuning into myself through the magic school. So that would be another story too. So with that, thank you again for tuning in today. Thank you for listening to my stories. Thank you for coming with me on that journey of looking back at my life, which seems to be really healing and nourishing to my system. And next time I will dive deeper into the burnout story and magic school. Until then, have a wonderful time. And I see you then. Bye bye. Thank you for joining me on this journey inwards. May the whispers you heard today echo into your daily life, gently guiding, healing, and reminding you of who you truly are. If this episode stirred something in your heart, I invite you to follow, share, or leave a review. It helps the medicine reach those who need it most. And if you feel called to go deeper, connect with me. Until next time, stay rooted, stay open, and keep listening to the whispers from within.